Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to feature a conversation with my admissions colleague, Marc Paulo Guzman. Marc Paulo is a two-time guest here on the Experience Darden podcast, and he and I recently sat down to talk a little bit more about our latest diversity conference, which just wrapped up this past weekend, as well as the upcoming Consortium deadline. For those targeting the first Consortium deadline, you're going to want to check out this episode. Marc Paulo shares lots of great admissions insights and tips for Consortium applicants. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Marc Paulo Guzman. Marc Paulo, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
I should probably say welcome back to the podcast. This is your second appearance here on the Experience Darden podcast. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So for those listeners who did not hear your earlier interview, tell us about you. Who are you and what's your role here at Darden?
Great. So my name is Marc Paulo Guzman. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Associate Director for Diversity Recruitment here at Darden. I've been here for about 2 years. Before that, I worked at the University of Virginia undergrad side of things, working for multicultural affairs. Worked there for 6 years before coming here and focusing heavily on the diversity pipelines here at Darden.
So it's been a very busy few months here at Darden.
Yes.
We've had one Darden week. We just wrapped up the diversity conference, which you were very much involved with. So let's start with one Darden week. Some of our listeners may not be as familiar with this week. What is one Darden week? What does it look like?
Yeah. So one Darden week was put together by Vice President of Darden Student Association, Jade Palomino, who's a second year, really focusing on diversity and inclusion here at Darden. So it's a week-long set of events, starting off with a Darden pledge that we started this year. We created the pledge to make sure that we are committed to diversity and inclusion, and students got the chance to sign that in the morning of the first day of the week. And it was important for students to think about diversity and inclusion and to make a verbal commitment to it. And so we had people read the pledge and then sign it in the morning.
It's exciting to see the full community come together. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are involved in one Darden week, and it obviously such great energy during that week. People ask, you talk with prospective students a lot about what the culture and community is like here. What stands out to you about that week and what happens?
Yeah. So one of the major things about that week is that it talks about diversity from a very broad and holistic lens. So it's not just about ethnic and racial diversity, but we asked different clubs to identify as affinity clubs or career clubs to talk more broadly and to sponsor events about diversity and inclusion, because it's a whole group responsibility and not just the affinity clubs. And so we had the Darden Military Association. We had other career clubs sponsoring classes or courses on class, on gender, on being an international student and the culture shock you have by being a new person here in the United States. And so it was exciting to see so many diverse groups of people come together, people who you might not expect to be at a diversity and equity and inclusion type of event.
Well, certainly, you think about these events, getting people to think about issues or topics that will have relevance for them well beyond their 2 years here at Darden. One Darden week, and certainly this emphasis on diversity and inclusion seems like one of those things. We like to believe, as admissions committee members, that we're identifying students who are curious about other people, want to learn from other people, about other cultures, other perspectives. We actually added an essay question on the application this year that asked about diversity. That question obviously new for this year. What's exciting to you about that being part of our application?
Yeah, I think the way we do the case method and we really rely on different people's experiences in the classroom. We need to know that people who come to Darden are able to speak about difference, are able to learn from one another and be open to different perspectives. And so that question is a big signal to the learning experience that we have at Darden, that it requires people to be open to different perspectives and different worldviews, and to know how to work with difference. And so that's a huge signal to those coming to Darden.
Yeah, I think it's important, as you note, from a value standpoint. And case method really does break down if you don't feel like you have anything to learn from the people in the room with you. So it's interesting. I don't know if you get this question a lot from prospective students. I feel like I've been having quite a few phone conversations lately where people are asking, like, what are we looking for in the admissions process? And I always stress that we're always thinking about that classroom dynamic. Who will you be? What kind of teammate will you be? Classmate will you be? What perspective will you bring? But are you also open to learning from others?
Yeah. Well, the whole point of the case method is this peer learning, peer teaching model. And if people aren't ready to be both, it's not a place for them. And so I think that this type of question gets a little bit deeper into how do you learn from people of diverse background, people who are different from you, and how do you also teach about yourself?
So Diversity Conference, we're in year 2 of the Diversity Conference last year. It's a great event. I'm always struck by how far people travel for this event. Do you want to talk about some of the places where people came from for this year's Diversity Conference?
I mean, I saw people from the West Coast, from far north as New Hampshire and Boston, some from Florida and Texas. So I'm pretty excited to see how many people come from all across the country.
Yeah, it's a fantastic event. For many of our prospective students, Charlottesville is new to them. They have not spent time here. The University of Virginia is new. They may know about the school generally, but haven't spent time on grounds. And it's a great couple of days for folks. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the programming of this year's event?
Yeah, we like to make sure we're doing a good balance of being here on grounds at Darden, but also getting out into the community. So we actually have a chance for them to go to the downtown pedestrian mall here in Charlottesville and experience nightlife. We actually bring them out all the way to a vineyard about 20 minutes away in Crozet called King Family Vineyard to experience a nice fall day out in the vineyard. And so while they're on grounds, we get to experience student life, being in a classroom, understanding what it means to be a Darden student, from case prep to being in social settings, and talking to our different faculty members and staff members, really focused on the idea that that learning in the case method is very conducive to the business acumen that some people might fear that it might be not focused on hard skills. And it was really exciting to see people learn about impact investing and finance through the case that we had with Elena, and to really understand that you can learn hard financial skills through the case method. We had our new Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Christy Julian, share her new role, along with Chief Diversity Officer Martin Davidson, about their goals and mission for diversity and inclusion here at Darden. And they were able to talk to a lot of students who helped plan the event and to help them truly understand why Darden is the place for them.
The thing that I'm always struck about with Diversity Conference is that it is much like One Darden Week, a community event. It's not just admissions. It's not just admissions and faculty. It's admissions, faculty, staff, students, everybody coming together. I think of it as a great example of how important diversity is here. Yeah,
and this year we actually had alumni come back. That was a new piece of our schedule that we added. We worked with a handful of corporate sponsorships who had Darden alum who wanted to come back and share their experiences with us. From being a diverse student here at Darden to then being someone of a diverse background in the workforce and understanding what it means to be a woman, a person of color, a queer person in industry. It was really interesting for students to hear and gain insight from.
I imagine those conversations were really, really fascinating. What were some of the takeaways that you had from listening to the conversations over the course of the event?
I think I was excited to hear how much things like the case method and the tight-knit community here translate past the 2 years. Students are not only learning the hard skills here at Darden, but they're learning to be confident and to take a stance on an opinion, or to have a lot of information thrown at them and come out with something to synthesize the information with. They're very quick and very confident in their opinions, and that's why I think our students do really well after they get their MBA here.
I also think that students get a lot of experience working with folks who are different than them, yes. Do not share their background, both in the classroom and the learning team setting. You interact with others so much that when you're on a team in your future job and you have a lot of different people in the room, you know how to navigate that, and you know how to be mindful and thoughtful and empathetic as you think about other people's experiences and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the students really get out of the business education here at Darden that translates into the real world is how much they bring the human aspect of business into their work. And it came out a lot in the cases. It came out a lot in the alumni perspectives is how much they're focusing on the person, the human. And so it was really cool to hear experiences that were not just did we get more profit or minimize costs, but the impact was more on how they impacted the community or how they're really looking at the human aspects of business rather than things like machine learning that might focus on data or number sets and stuff like that.
Well, that's certainly consistent with Darden's overall, purpose. You think about what the school is about. There's a lot of talk about responsible leadership, and ethics is a required part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. Combined with you have Ed Freeman here, one of the real founders of the stakeholder theory, versus the idea that you have stakeholders that you're trying to create value for, not just shareholders. So there's a lot here that aligns with that. So I think if a student is interested in business as a force for greater good or has this broader purpose in mind as part of their MBA journey, that's a great place to be.
Yeah. The case that we had focused on an impact investing case that people were really able to think about their values and how it relates to business. We also had a case by Laleen Anik to focus on gender-based marketing and how we could use marketing to really change perceptions and to move society forward. And so it's not just about, again, making more money. It's about how do we change minds and move us forward in society.
Both things that seem to be very much on the minds of prospective students. I know you interact with a number of prospective students. I feel like in my conversations, people are always asking about whether it's social impact, social entrepreneurship, corporate social responsibility. People want to be engaged with these careers, these paths that are a blend of both business and values. The path to those kind of jobs may be a little bit trickier, but there is a path, and you can get there. Is that something that resonates with you as you talk to prospective students?
A lot of students are wondering how they can think about their values and their philosophies and impact with a business degree. And a lot of our students are going to get jobs in companies that are focusing on social entrepreneurship, social innovation, social impact. And so it's really cool that people are putting their passions along with doing well.
A quick plug for another podcast episode we did, an earlier episode with Net Impact, one of our student organizations here. We talked about corporate social responsibility and sort of the path to a role like that. And the students were pretty clear. It's difficult to land that job straight out of business school. What you try to do is find a company whose values align with yours or who are active in this kind of space. And obviously there seems to be some opportunity there. And then you get there. In network, try to find a way in through that. And I thought that was really, really insightful and great advice. So if this conversation about values and social impact and brand, all of that really aligns with you, check out that episode. So Marc Paulo, busy time of year for you. We're recording this on the Monday after Diversity Conference. I'm sure you were hoping for a day off, and we brought you in for the for the podcast.
Glad to do it.
It's also the first consortium deadline, and that's an exciting time, too. You work closely with our consortium students. Some of our listeners may not know much about the consortium. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what the consortium is?
Sure. So the consortium is a group of 20 schools that is focused on diversity and inclusion, and it's a pipeline program for diverse backgrounds to the MBA program. And so there's a way for students to apply to up to 6 different schools in one common application, and the consortium also signals to a lot of schools that they're interested also in competing for fellowships and scholarships. And so we're excited to be a part of the group. We bring in around 35 to 36 students a year who are focused on diversity and inclusion. We bring them over to an orientation program every summer with the 19 other business schools to learn more about what it means to be a diverse person in the MBA programs that they're at, but also to start recruiting and working with businesses early on.
So if I'm a prospective student interested in learning more about the consortium or figuring out if I'm potentially a good fit, how do I do that?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways. So I would say the first is going on to the consortium website, so cgsm.org. Really shows the mission and vision of the consortium, who they're looking for, what types of backgrounds and passions they're looking for from the students. And then you can also check us out at some of our Consortium MAPS events. So there are Consortium MBA application preparation seminars all across the country that really focus on the mission and vision of the consortium, but also how to really maximize the application process.
And you also talked about OP, Orientation Program, which is a tremendous opportunity. So this is obviously for students who have been admitted to a business school through the consortium members, admitted to a business school. It happens prior to the start of the first year. You want to talk about what this entails? It's an incredible event.
Yeah, it's about a 4 to 5 day program. The first day really focuses on the individual school. So the entire cohort comes together to learn more about each other, to learn more about our mission and vision from a school perspective. And then you get to meet the other 19 schools. And so you get to see the larger consortium network, the network that you'll be with the rest of your life because it is a lifelong membership. And then you start connecting with different companies and industry leaders who are focusing on diversity and inclusion. And I think it's a good place to start recruiting as well. It's a good entry point for recruitment.
Some students even find their jobs through OP, which is incredible.
Yeah, right before you even start classes.
Makes that first year potentially a little bit easier. So the consortium process, as you noted, one application to 6 schools, save you a little bit of money and maybe some time. What are some tips that you have for consortium applicants? It's obviously a unique process. What would you share with them?
Yeah, I think it's an important process to really spend a lot of time in. And it is a common application, but there are different supplemental essays that you have to do for each school. So I think it's important for you as an applicant to really know each school, visit each school and really understand whether or not it's a perfect fit, because it is still, while it is cheaper, it's still money. And so I wouldn't waste an application on there. And so to really understand whether or not the school makes sense to you and that you can really be personable and personal in the essays, because it could be very easy to just apply to a set number of 6 schools and not really have a personal touch with them. And so I think that it's important for students to have connected with each of the students from the schools and the staff members and admissions officers from each school. And so I think coming to something like the diversity conference or a class visit here at Darden really shows to us that you've done more than the bare minimum of just applying. You've connected with one of our students, with our faculty and staff members, and really see yourself here. I think it also helps you as an applicant really know how well you want to rank or preference your schools, because at the end of the day, you're able to rank your schools based off of how much you really want to get into them and how much you really want to go to them. That really starts to play a role with scholarship later on.
So there are a number of ways to connect with us. You talked about class visits, diversity conference. We do events all over the place, whether it's case discussion or a smaller event like a coffee chat, which is typically a small group event with an admissions officer. We also have webinars. We do online events. We have phone conversations. So lots of ways to learn about Darden. I think as an admissions committee, we enjoy making ourselves available in that way because this is a small school. Mm-hmm. And we really want to get to know students through the process. Yeah, I think every aspect of the Darden experience is very personable, very conversational, and that's how the case method is. That's how learning and really working in a learning team is. And so we want to make sure we're able to connect with you one-on-one in some way, whether it is on the phone or through a webinar, but also in person by visiting or going to a networking reception. There's a multitude of ways to really connect with us, and that's really how we can gauge whether or not this is a perfect fit, because this is all about the one-to-one connection. Yeah, I've enjoyed having the conversations because I do think there's obviously there's a practical value in just taking 15 minutes to talk with a prospective student. But I also think that there's a certain metaphorical aspect to it, right? This is a place where you're not going to be an abstraction. You're not just going to be a number. People are going to know you, take an interest in you. And even if we can demonstrate that in a small way through the admissions process, I think it underscores the fact that students are priorities here. Mm-hmm. And there's a human scale to the Darden experience. I'd say even everything from the application, every application gets read by multiple people. It's not just a computer making cuts. Our interview style, we're pretty transparent about how we do our interviews. It's all about you as an individual, not about your resume. And so we're not looking at that. We're looking at you to be able to
create conversation and share a narrative and share your story. And that's what Darden is exchanging stories and being able to add to the Darden narrative.
I think for some candidates, the interview is a little bit trickier just because you're used to that behavioral interview style. Tell me about a time when, or what's the hardest thing for you, et cetera, et cetera. The questions go on from there. As you noted, our interviews are conversational in nature, and oftentimes the applicant is talking a fair amount in those interviews. Are there any tips that you share with people? We're about to sort of move into round one interviews, or start doing interview review and then inviting people for interviews in the coming weeks. Any tips that you share?
Yeah. I'd say just relax and really know yourself in this process. It's your story. You know it best. So I think when you really show confidence and humility in your story, it really shows to us that you can really be a member of the Darden community. I think the story and the narrative is important. If you're able to share your perspectives and your backgrounds and your expertise in the classroom, it should come out through the interview as well. And so make sure your story lines up, all the everything makes sense, and there are no gaps in your story. And so maybe practice it a couple of times with your friends, just sharing your story. It's about a 35 to 40-minute interview. It's not going to only be you speaking. It's hopefully a conversation between you and the interviewer. But it is a good amount of time just you sharing your story chronologically from the very beginning and really highlighting areas that you really stand out as a leader, as a team member, as a community member.
You're right. The pacing is important. You don't have all day. You don't have hours. You have about 35 to 40 minutes. So you want to really figure out, what you want to highlight, and if there are opportunities to talk about your leadership, global experiences you've had. I always enjoy talking with people about their hobbies and interests. Yeah. Every interviewer has his or her own style, but that's such a luxury to be able to sit with an applicant and really have him or her share with us who they are, and you get a great feel for someone. So obviously an important part of our application process for candidates for whom we're considering admission. So here we are, a consortium deadline on the horizon. Obviously admission cycle really heating up. Any tips you'd want to share with our listeners out there who may be working on a consortium application or thinking about round two at this point? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it can be very easy to get stressed out and nervous about the process. I think it's a good place to really understand yourself more, to really know your strengths, areas of growth, to really be confident in areas that you have really excelled in the past few years. And so take this time to really get to know yourself and to understand the process. And it can be very easy to get caught up in the numbers and the scores and the tests, and to take it one step at a time. The good thing about the Darden admissions experience is very holistic, and every school will say that, but we really believe that you're more than just a specific data point on the application. I've worked with students who did really well here in the classroom and in industry, who I know didn't have the strongest set of scores or GPA. And we really believe that it's not just those that really determine how well you do here or how well you do in the workforce.
Yeah, great advice around knowing yourself and what you want to share. I think oftentimes I'm going to blame the internet a little bit here. It's fora and forums, different conversations online. Students can kind of get lost in, well, you need to do this and this. If you're applying to Darden, you do these three things depending on what people are sharing there in those conversations. But the reality is the best thing to focus on through this process is you, and the story that you want to share with us. I always tell people the application is an introduction, right? It's at the end of the day, it should be you being the truest, most authentic version of yourself, so that at the end of reviewing your application, we think, gosh, this is somebody I'd like to talk to more, learn a little bit more about. That's where the interview comes in. But it can be hard for candidates to do that, because I think you get pulled in a lot of different directions, a lot of different advice. But focus on you. I think it's the best way to go.
Yeah.
So, Marc Paulo, thank you so much for your time. I recognize it's been a really, really active time for you. Anything that you're looking forward to in the coming weeks, months?
Well, I'll be going to RAMBA, which is Reaching Out for MBA LGBTQ conference in Atlanta in a few days. So I'll be there for a few days working on pre-MBA students, as well as our current students will be interviewing for jobs there. I'll also be in Atlanta doing coffee chats for just anyone who's in the area. And I'll be also in New York doing some LGBTQ recruitment as well.
All right. So you're always on the road.
Yes.
It seems like it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's great. You do a great job, obviously, making time to talk with students who want to learn more about Darden. Obviously, between coffee chats and phone calls. I appreciate all that you do to recruit students to Darden. Thanks for all your hard work on the diversity conference. Year 2 sounds like even better than year 1, which was a high bar to clear. And it's great. Obviously feeling like there's so much momentum right now behind the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate it.
And that was my conversation with Marc Paulo Guzman, Associate Director of Diversity Recruitment here at Darden and one of my admissions colleagues. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, it's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.